I'm Mike Dilk of Relax Back UK, and I've been talking with Karen Robinson of Shefford Osteopathic Clinic. She's recently conducted a survey looking at our movement habits, and she's arrived at some interesting, surprising and also some rather alarming findings. So, Karen, tell me, were you surprised at just how static a lot of people are?
Not really. Both friends and patients now spend long hours commuting and working, and our leisure time is now spent on watching telly, using social media or playing computer games. With this study, what I wanted people to do is actually to take stock and think how much time they actually were sitting during their day.
And can you give us some examples of that sort of thing that you discovered from the survey?
I don't know how many people know, but the recommended hours to sit in a day is 4.5, so that is just 4.5 hours. So the study showed that 50% spent up to 2 hours commuting, 48% of you spend 4 to 8 hours at a desk, 63% of you spend 2 hours sitting at home during the day, whether it's eating or doing extra work, and then a massive 88% of us spend 2 to 4 hours a day, probably in the evenings, watching telly, online gaming, that kind of stuff.
And did people seem open to the idea of moving a little bit more in general?
Yes, 78% of people actually pottered during the day, and that is really important because it's the sitting for prolonged periods of time that actually causes the health issues. And then 85% of people actually exercise for up to 2 hours at least once a week, and this is gym, gardening or walking, so it's just generally getting this body working and moving.
And how about moving at work, in the workplace?
An amazing 56% of people said that they could stand up in work, and that was brilliant. And then when we asked if they had the option to move or whatever, only 23% of people said they wouldn't, but this means a massive 77% of people are actually prepared to change the way that they work at a desk if given the opportunity and support.
And as far as the opportunity is concerned, how can we make that happen?
A few things. I think as individuals, we must kind of accept that sitting for long periods of time is not good for us. And then companies and our employers need to accept this. And then ask yourself the question, do I need to be sitting to do this task? So you can have walking meetings, do not sit at your desk and have your lunch, walk up and chat to people if you're in the same building, go walk down, that kind of stuff. The next thing is going to be equipment. There are many different desks and chairs on the market now in various shapes and sizes that actually allow us to move. So you've got the sit-down desks and various chairs that actually move with our bodies. And then I'd say look at equipment, more laptops and tablets, which are becoming more and more popular. However, if you think about the way we use them with our head hanging forwards, research now shows that this is just brewing arthritis in people as young as their 20s.
What is a DSC assessment, and have people had them when you asked them this in the survey?
A DSC is a display screen assessment, and if you use a computer, you should have one. 50% of people who work at computer had one, but out of that, only 53% of people were confident in actually setting up their chair. So that tells me that while companies may be providing this, actually people are not actually understanding why, the underlying reasons as to why they should sit correctly, and therefore they're not doing it.
And presumably this will lead to pain, back pain, neck pain, this sort of thing. Do we suffer in silence?
I think we probably do. 91.5% of people said they suffered with aches and pains, and most people had more than one area. So 60% of us are going to have suffering low back pain, half of us have got neck and shoulder pains, and 27% of us have headaches. So yes, I think we probably are suffering in silence.
And in the survey you asked questions about children and children's habits. Are children too sedentary nowadays?
The study showed, when we asked their parents, that 58% of children sit longer than 4 hours a day. So I think that is quite bad with the sedentary. If they're starting this young, then what are they brewing for the future?
The survey was certainly very comprehensive. Where can the complete survey results be seen?
This can be found on my website, which is www.sheffordosteo.com. osteopath.com and go to the blog page.
Excellent. And finally, Karen, do you have 3 top tips from your experience in general and from the survey that people can take away today?
So number 1, let's face it, we're going to sit. So in which case, please make sure you know how to sit correctly at your work desk, in your car, studying at school. Make sure you know how to sit correctly. Secondly, you've got to take regular breaks and move, so do whatever you can to move. And then thirdly, just think about the whole day and think about how you're using your body. Try and find a balance between being active, sitting and resting.
Excellent, Karen. I think that was very interesting and very useful for a lot of people, so thank you very much.
Thank you.